Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Penrith Chamber COVID-19 webinar. It's obviously very topical at the moment. Everyone's a bit up in the air, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change that's happening every day, it seems. So thanks for logging on. We just wanted to reach out to our members, but also the wider business community, and just help people understand things like the stimulus package, HR and leave obligations for staff, what you can do to maybe protect yourself and market in the downturn. So I'm going to kick off with the webinar now, the presentation. First of all, for those that have just joined, if you can just open up your chat box and just let us know how you are this morning, just so we can make sure that you can see the webinar, and we'll get started. Hi Joe, hi Sam, Nadia, Gia, Tony, great to have you on. Kimberly, very good. All right, so just a very quick welcome. So I'm just going to just manage people as they arrive. So very quick welcome. My name's Anil. I'm the Vice President of the Penrith Valley Chamber of Commerce. I've got a business coaching firm and an accounting background. I'm part of a group called Chan & Naylor, which is a national accounting, finance and advisory group. And I generally work with businesses that are growing, need help managing that growth, or in this current situation and circumstance, just helping people maintain their sanity really at the moment. Now, I won't be presenting, but I'll be facilitating the discussion. We'll have three presenters, so I'll just go over to what we are going to cover. We're going to cover off the government stimulus package. We are going to, and that will be Suzanne from ClearPath Accounting, who is actually our treasurer. We are going to cover off the whole issue around staff, how to manage staff and what the obligations are. And that'll be Greg from HR Success, who is our secretary, the Penrith Valley Chamber of Commerce secretary. And we're going to cover off marketing in the current climate. And our president, Simon Gould from Orbit Marketing, will be taking us through that. All right. And then we'll just wrap up with some Q&A and how to stay positive in general. All right. So what I'll do is I'll ask Suzanne to unmute herself, and I'll hand over to Suzanne to introduce herself and take us through the stimulus package. Suzanne, are you there?
I am. Hello, Anil. Thank you.
All right, over to you.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, I'm Suzanne Walker. I'm the founder and principal CPA of ClearPath Accounting, and I'm based in Blaxland. I've got a team of 6 wonderful staff members. And basically we provide, strategic, future-focused advice for business owners, really to maximise their success. And at the moment, my team have been working really hard, reaching out to all of our business clients. They're still in that process, so if there's any clients out there and you haven't heard from us, it'll be a day or two. And really just trying to hold their hand through this period of time. So I've got 25 years worth of experience in taxation, business accounting and business advisory. And I joined the Penrith Chamber in 2008 and immediately took the role of treasurer. And it's been a fun ride so far.
One thing Suzanne didn't mention, one of the reasons why she may not have gotten back to her clients or gotten in touch with them as yet is because you've just become a grandma.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So 2 days ago, my youngest daughter, Lucy, gave birth to a little baby boy. So it's a beautiful thing at the moment, and we're just reveling in the love. So thank you.
All right. I'll just click over to the next slide, Suzanne. Will saying congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to go through is basically what's available for small to medium businesses through the stimulus package. When will that help be available to you? Other considerations or actions to consider, and what your next steps really should be at this time. So we've all heard of this stimulus package, but I think the section of the stimulus package which will benefit most businesses, anyone with employers anyway, is basically the boosting the cash flow for employers. So the government did have an initial announcement on the 12th of March, but they have now reviewed that and made it far more generous than the previous announcement. So at the moment, what the government has decided to do is to basically match the PAYG withholding that any business is lodging in their March 2020 quarter and their June 2020 BASs. And this is up to a maximum of $50,000. So in addition to that, the minimum payment being received by an employer is actually $10,000 for that period, that 6-month period of time. Then in the July to September quarter, the government will match what they've paid you in that previous period, so that previous 6-month period. So for example, if an employer pays $2,000 per quarter in PAYG withholding for its employees, then they will actually receive $10,000 for the March and June quarter, so in that 6-month period of time. Then in the September quarter, they will receive another $10,000. So that's $20,000 minimum for all employers for that period of time. Obviously, if we've got employers withholding more than $25,000 per quarter, then they're going to receive the maximum amount of $50,000 for the March and June quarters, then another $50,000 in the September quarter, and that's where the $100,000 cap comes in. It's important to remember that these payments will be delivered as credits on your tax account, not as bank deposits. So if these payments result in a credit balance in your tax account, that's when you will receive a cash refund from the tax office. But if you still have tax owing on your BAS account, then at least your tax has been reduced, your debt has been reduced. Now for the March quarter BASs payments, they will be received in April when you lodge your BAS. The June quarter will be received in July, and then the final payment, the double payment basically, will be received in October. So that's when you can expect it, and it goes on your tax account again. Now, another initiative the government has come up with is assistance for to help pay for apprentices. So they're going to subsidise half of the apprentice wages for a period of 9 months. Now, that 9-month period starts on the 1st of January 2020 and will end the 30th of September. And that's up to $21,000 per apprentice. And now it's capped at $7,000 per quarter as well. So this subsidy will be available for small businesses who employ fewer than 20 full-time employees. And those apprentices must have been in training with the employer as of the 1st of March. So they've already been employed by the business. Employers must register for this subsidy, and those registrations, you cannot register until early April. And then the final claims for payment must be lodged before the 31st of December.
And Susan, on that, the registration, is that done through their normal apprentice agency, that type of thing?
Yeah, so I would be contacting your apprentice agency, or yeah, I would contact them. There may be a specific body that's going to do this. I'm not really sure yet. So all of these minor details still need to be worked out. But yeah, I believe if they contact whoever they're dealing with at this moment in time, they'll get the information from there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Now, there's also been an increase to the low asset write-off threshold, and that increase is from $30,000 to $150,000. Now, just remember that that only applies from the assets purchased from the 12th of March 2020 only till the 30th of June. Now, I'm not recommending that businesses go out there and spend up $150,000 on assets. But if you did have a plan, and if you get through this period of trading period and you still need equipment, then that would be a good initiative. And I would see businesses really kind of applying for that really towards the end of the financial year rather than now. Things are a little bit up in the air still. The government's also going to guarantee 50% of new business loans taken over a 3-year term for up to 250,000. Okay. Now, these loans are going to be unsecured over a 3-year period, and there will be an initial 6-month repayment holiday, so there's no repayments due for the first 6 months. The loans will be subject to your lender's normal credit assessment process. So I'm not sure if anyone has started that application process, but you still need to fill in the normal information. And what I've heard is that basically it will be a product, a separate product. So the bank will provide you with a full $250,000 facility, and then the business will only be charged the interest on what they draw down. Okay, so but just remember it's only a 3-year term. I'm not sure whether you can refinance after that period of time if necessary, but just whenever you're deciding if you need that, have a look at what you can pay off in that 3-year period.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Suzanne. While we're chatting about that, I'd love to hear if anyone's got any updates, whether they've actually applied for that. It'd be great if you could just add that into your comment box. Just say yes, you're looking at it, or you've already started the process. But I suppose it can be a risk to put that in place as a crutch, I suppose, if you don't have, if you're not confident that you can repay it within the 3 years, and obviously looking at more fundamental ways to reduce costs and save cash flow would be preferable than taking out a loan and keeping on spending when you may not need to.
Yeah, that's right. And if the banks are putting in their normal lending assessments, there's some businesses that won't be eligible for it, perhaps. So it'll be an interesting space to watch for. I know I do have a client that is going to apply for that product, and then we're making plans to ensure that they can pay that off within that period of time. That's really important.
Okay. One quick question that I've had in the past is this first one up here in terms of the PAYG or withholding tax rebates. That does apply for directors of the business as well who are employees?
That's right. Now, it's really important to remember also that this is only eligible for employers established before the 12th of March. Now, I have heard of accountants recommending quickly everyone go and set, for the sole traders, go and set up a company and start paying wages. Now, unfortunately, that's not great advice, because the employer had to be established prior to the 12th of March. So just be careful there. And yes, if you're a business that had to reduce your staff significantly or put off staff members, and I would still try to pay you as directors so that you're entitled to some type of rebate.
Yeah. Good. Thanks for clarifying that. And I was unsure as well about the second quarter payment for the September quarter. If you've reduced your wages, for example, because you've had a downturn, it would be based on what you've paid in the March quarter.
So the March quarter is probably your most normal. Mm-hmm. Your April to June may be reduced depending on your circumstances. So they're going to match whatever they've paid you in those first 2 quarters there, and that will be received in the September quarter.
All right, I'll let you continue.
Pleasure, thank you. Okay, so the government has also announced early access to super for eligible individuals. Now, basically, you can apply for this through your MyGov account, and you can apply for up to $10,000 before the 30th of June, and then if necessary, you can apply for another $10,000 after the 1st of July. These payments will be tax-free. Now, to be eligible for application, you would be unemployed or your working hours reduced by 20% or more. If you are a sole trader, then your business will have been suspended or there was a reduction in turnover of at least 20%. Okay. Okay, so there's also going to be temporary relief for financially distressed businesses. There's going to be an increase in, and this is basically for companies, there's going to be, or other businesses that are incurring debts. There's going to be an increase for creditors to statutory demands. The threshold was $2,000 and it's going up to $20,000 for the next 6 months only. There's also been an increase in the threshold for initiating bankruptcy proceedings from the $5,000 to the $20,000, and again for that 6-month period only. And another thing, the directors will be temporarily relieved of their duty to prevent insolvent trading, which means they won't be personally liable for debts incurred in the ordinary course of business during this period of time. They haven't specifically said a 6-month period for that, but we'll just wait and see what happens there.
Suzanne, on that, I have had a couple of people ask about this. So this means that if you've got a creditor that you owe less than $20,000,
yes,
they can't initiate bankruptcy proceedings.
That's correct. That's correct.
So keep everyone under $20,000 if
yeah. Spread the load. Okay, so payroll tax concession. So this is really for employers that are already registered for the payroll tax liability. They'll receive an immediate payment waiver for their March 2020 payroll tax liability, and that's due on the 7th of April. So basically, there's no payment no matter what it is. They also have, they will also receive a reduction of 25% of their entire payroll tax liability for the 2019-2020 year. And that will be received once they lodge their annual reconciliation, which is due on the 28th of July, 2020. And as of the 1st of July, payroll tax threshold is also being increased from $900,000 to $1 million. So that will cut out some businesses from that threshold.
Great. And on payroll tax, payments made between April and June, so that's waived as well?
No, it's what I've read is only for that month of March.
And then there's an adjustment.
And then there'll be yeah. So with the 25%, what I've also read is still from the month of March, you lodge how much you need to pay. So you lodge your declaration for that month, and that will be included in the 25% reconciliation as well. So basically, you're looking at the full financial year, whatever you've paid, 25% reduction. I'm not sure whether you're going to receive that in a cash payment or it'll come off the next month's liability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so other actions to consider. We're recommending to our clients at the moment to reduce costs wherever you can. So that would be looking at your profit and loss statement and actively look at every expense. What can you defer? What can you remove altogether? And I would be quite disciplined in this area at this stage. I'd be contacting your landlord, ask for a reduced rent or a rent-free period of time, especially for those businesses who have had to close the doors. Then asking for a rent-free period, you've got a really good case. If you're still trading, then a reduced rent agreement might be more applicable. Contact your bank. You may be eligible to stall all mortgage and loan repayments for 6 months. I know all the banks have been asked to do that for business owners or anyone who has lost their job as well, I believe. Ask your accountant to contact the ATO and negotiate reduced payment terms or payment deferrals if you've got existing debt. You may also want to ask your accountant to review your PAYG instalments. So if you've got reduced profits or you predict that you may have a loss this financial year, then they can reduce the PAYG instalments basically to nil. And then in this March and June BASs, they can also ask for a refund of the prior amounts that you have paid for this financial year. And that would be applicable for anyone who is really predicting a loss for the year, because you're going to have no income tax liability. So that's a good way to, get money back from the tax office. Also ask your accountant to request any interest or penalty remissions from the ATO. The ATO is in a frame of mind to really help businesses get through this. They haven't got any particular arrangements yet. However, they are being more lenient in regards to payments. I know they are able to defer payments until, I think it was a weird date, like the 12th of September, for any new debt that is incurred after the 23rd of January. So those two dates, I'm not sure where they came up with those dates from, but if you're incurring new debts after the 23rd of January, we contacted the tax office yesterday, so we've had the phone call, then you can have a payment-free period up until the 12th of September. For any old debts or any debts prior to the 23rd of January, you can ask for reduced payment terms, but they will be expecting some type of payment. So just make sure you understand that. And then, whenever there's a plan set up, ask for negotiated low interest. And I'm really hoping that they'll come up with some type of interest-free plan as well eventually. They did that with the a few years ago. Sorry?
For the GFC? Or?
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah. But I'm hoping that they'll do that again. But I think just watch this space for that one.
Okay, excellent. Now, if anyone has any questions, please don't unmute yourself. Just type them into the chat box. We may keep going with the next presenter. We might come back to questions at the end, if that's okay. Keep going, Suzanne.
Just my last little bit, look, your next steps. Now it's essential that you decide what you're going to do. Clearly doing nothing is not an option. Now's the time to put the oxygen mask on yourself and make a plan to get through this crisis. Even if that plan involves closing your business, you're better off to make that decision sooner rather than later. Part of that planning is also surrounding yourself with experts, your accountant, your bank manager, your legal advisor, HR advisor, business coach, anyone that can offer you some expert advice and support. We're all here to help you. Remember to focus on what you can do rather than what you cannot do. This is, for the first time in 100 years, we're all in this together. So reach out to your family, friends, experts, other business owners, even your competitors, and see what they're doing. And, reaching out to support groups like the Chamber for advice is really important too. And that's it from me. So I wish everyone luck, and reach out to me. You can find my email address or contact details on the web. If you've got any questions, we're very happy to help anyone.
Yeah. And we will be sharing this recording with everyone who's registered, and along with that, the contact details for Suzanne, Greg, and Simon as well. Just one question, Suzanne, before you go. One question from June, who's asked, any changes for FBT?
Not at this stage. We did ask that question when we called the tax office. We said, is there any deferment? No, that's staying as it is at this stage. Okay. Unfortunately.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Suzanne.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now I'll get Greg to unmute himself. Greg's our secretary. Actually, we're quite fortunate that we've got a good team within the Chamber Board, we can come together and share this information. Now, I know HR issues have been very topical, lots of questions being asked, so I'll hand over to Greg now to give us an insight into what we need to do to manage our teams.
Thank you, Anil, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Anil, if I can just ask you to keep an eye on time, and if you need to hurry me along, just say so.
Okay, shall do.
So, yes, I won't spend much time on this, but anyway, HR Success, we're based in Penrith. We've been around, we're in our 13th or 14th year of business. I've been around longer than that. In terms of HR, and myself and my colleague Margot, you can see the areas of support that we provide. So needless to say, we've been very busy for the last couple of weeks, giving businesses some guidance in relation to two areas really. One is leave arrangements, and now we're having a lot of conversations with businesses around business downturn and closures, unfortunately. But anyway, we've got some information to provide you in relation to both of those areas. So let's start with the leave arrangement stuff. And, you know, we're getting, you know, all sorts of questions. We're getting new questions every day, but given the time constraints, we're sort of sticking to the most common ones that we're getting. If you've got some specific stuff before that, other than what we include here, then feel free to get in touch after the webinar. Anyway, so first one is where employees are required to self-isolate. Are they entitled to be paid personal and carers leave? The thing that, well, people are really only entitled to personal and carers leave where they're either directly unwell themselves, so they have the virus or they have some other illness, or they're providing care or support to an immediate family member. So in the scenario where they're unwell or providing care, absolutely they're entitled to whatever personal or carers leave they may have available. Obviously, that's only paid if they're a full-time or part-time staff member and they have that leave accrued. In the case where somebody is required to isolate, for example, they've recently returned from overseas since midnight on the 15th of March, and they need to stay home. If they're not unwell and or they're not providing care or support to a family member who is unwell, they do need to stay home, but they're not entitled to personal or carers leave in that circumstance because they, you know, they are not unwell and they're not providing care or support. So they do need to stay home, but they would need to draw upon their own annual leave or, you know, time in lieu or something like that. Of course, the ideal scenario is that they're able to work from home. Not everybody has that opportunity though, but that's certainly something that should be explored in that instance. So that's the first scenario. Oh, and I will say in relation to that, the New South Wales government recently had yesterday or the day before changed some of the rules around long service leave. So people now that have a long service leave balance should be able to access that more easily under current arrangements than they would have prior to this. The second scenario I've got here is where we've got employees that are just concerned about the whole thing. You know, they're watching all the news, they're watching, you know, having a look at social media, and frankly, they're just anxious, as we all are, I'm sure. But anyway, you've got an instance, for example, where an employee is just worried and they just want to stay home. In that case, you should try and work with them to again explore any work from home arrangement that might be possible. If that's not possible and they still want to stay home, yet they're fit to attend work, then there's really no leave payable, certainly not personal or carers leave, because they're not unwell and presumably they're not providing care or support to an immediate family member. So if they just want to stay home, then they either need to draw upon their annual leave or long service leave or time in lieu, something like that, or it's or they need to request leave without pay.
And Greg, in both of those situations, let's say someone was in contact with someone who has either tested positive or is getting tested, and therefore we've been told that, let's say there's someone in the workplace who's tested positive, has been in the workplace in contact with people in the workplace, then those people need to self-isolate. Once again, that is not personal carers leave, that is annual leave.
Yes. Yeah. Well, ideally you try and negotiate, again, work from home or something like that, but, you know, recognising that that's not appropriate in all cases, but ideally that's what you do. But if you can't do that, then, and the person's not themselves unwell, but they do need to isolate, then that needs to come from their annual leave or something, or unfortunately leave without pay. So that's the case where people are under sort of government requirements to isolate. So they're people that have either been diagnosed themselves, they've had close contact with the diagnosed person, or they've returned from overseas since midnight on the 15th of March.
Okay.
If you've been in close contact with somebody that is being tested, you know, I think it's appropriate to take precautions, but you're not, as I understand it, on that scenario, you're not required to stay at home unless that person subsequently becomes diagnosed. So that goes down to the last dot point there. What about if I think someone is a risk and I direct them to stay home? If you actually direct them to stay home and they don't need to stay at home under government order, however, you just want to be extra safe, again, I'd be trying to work out some sort of work from home arrangement. But if that's not possible and you just direct them to sit at home, then you need to pay them. Yeah, so if somebody's fit and able and ready to work, but you just don't want them in the workplace for whatever reason, for health and safety reasons, then yes, you need to pay them while they're under that.
That's paying them their normal pay. It's not annual leave or long service leave. That's their normal pay.
That's right, because in that case, you as the employer have made a direction for them to stay at home, as opposed to it being a government order.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the other one that was just above there relates to employees staying home to look after their kids. So I've got a few scenarios there. So the first two, where a childcare centre or a school is shut down because somebody's been diagnosed with the virus, or the second one, where there's a government shutdown as part of a government direction. In either of those two scenarios, they're unexpected circumstances, and they would be deemed an emergency situation, as in, you know, people didn't anticipate it, so they couldn't make other arrangements for childcare. In those cases, our understanding is that the carers leave would apply for that period. And I think school holidays is coming up soon. So if somebody is under one of those first two scenarios and then all of a sudden school holidays are upon us, then the carers leave wouldn't apply for the period of school holidays, because that was sort of expected and they should have made other arrangements for the care of their kids in that case. Now, the third scenario is just where an employee is particularly anxious about the whole thing, and even though the government has not said in relation to public schools that, you know, that, well, they're not closed is a situation. People have the opportunity to send their kids to school. Now, if they choose not to, that's their choice. It's not an emergency circumstance. Therefore, personal or carers leave would not apply in that situation. They're just making a choice. to not send their kids to school and to stay at home and care for them. So they need to draw on some other sort of leave in that circumstance.
Okay. Now I've got a question from Joe relating to this last point on the slide here. Joe has said, I'm not sure if you can see this too, Greg, but what if I directed them, my employee, to stay at home because they said that their partner was in contact with someone who had the virus? I assume that's covered by that last point where they haven't necessarily been exposed to someone with coronavirus. Someone they know may have been exposed, and therefore the employer has directed them to stay at home. Now, I know in a lot of cases, what's happening is the employee has thought that that's reasonable and is probably eating into their annual leave, but legally that they should be paid normal.
Yeah.
Pay.
Look, it's unusual circumstances. Obviously, we've never faced anything like this before. But if as I think in most cases employees are being pretty reasonable and employers are doing their best to be reasonable as well. So I think in a lot of cases those sorts of things are resulting in, okay, I'll just work from home for a while, or I'll just take a week off and just make sure everything's okay. That's fine if that's the case, but if they want to come to work and you as the employer think that they put others at risk and you therefore direct them to stay at home, if they're not required under government order to stay at home, yet you direct them to stay at home, then yes, you need to pay them.
It's interesting when you say the government order, because even if someone at work, let's say if someone was in contact with someone who actually had the virus, is there a government order that says that person needs to self-isolate? That's a bit unclear, I think.
No, I think there is as I understand it, there is a government order that if you've been in close contact with a diagnosed person, you need to self-isolate.
Right, which means that sick leave would cover that then?
No, because they're not sick.
Right. Sorry, not sick. Okay, that's annual leave. Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah. I think I've got it, Greg.
Look, it is very confusing, and we're under unprecedented times, and you do need to look at the specifics of each case. So if anybody out there's got particular issues, call me and we can chat that through.
Right. All right.
So the next bit that we're talking about is we're getting increasing inquiries now around the business downturn and closures and shutdowns and whatnot. So now I will on the next slide talk about redundancies and stand down provisions. Now both of those, redundancies and stand down, are the last resort. That's what you need to do it may be what you need to do once you've exhausted all the other options. So what are those other options? So obviously the first one is, which a lot of employers are doing, working out, chatting with their employees, being honest about the situation, being transparent and saying, right, well, what can we do, folks? And then a lot of them, so a lot of employers and employees are reaching agreements whereby they're taking their predominantly annual leave or long service leave at this time, just while things settle down. Now you can take it in a block, as in I'm going to take 3 weeks off type thing, or you can do it to supplement reduced hours. So somebody might say, well, look, I'll only work 3 days a week for this period and I'll take 2 days a week out of my annual leave to supplement their income over this period. So that's one possible scenario. Another one, of course, is that somebody might just say, well, look, I'm prepared to take leave without pay for a period of time. If they agree to that, then obviously you can just document that and that resolves that for now. In some cases, you can direct employees to take annual leave. So that's a case where, you know, they may not want to take it, but you can direct them to take it. Now, you need to be very careful with this one. It's generally not readily available in most cases. In most cases, the awards will say you can direct somebody to take annual leave if they've got excess annual leave. So excess meaning generally means in excess of 8 weeks leave balance available to them. And the awards also say generally that you need to give them a period of notice. So in most cases, it's 4 weeks. So A, the person needs to have more than 8 weeks leave, and B, you need to give them 4 weeks notice to direct them to take it. So that makes that problematic as an option for most employers. Having said that, there have literally within the last couple of days, and I'll be sort of sending something out on our Facebook page and whatnot about this today, but there have literally been a couple of changes to the Clerks Award and the Hospitality Award in the last couple of days, which sort of frees that up a bit and allows, you know, in the case of the Hospitality Award, I think, for example, I was reading this morning, I'll qualify this by saying it's something I just read this morning, but it said one of the changes was that you can direct people to take a portion of their annual leave with just 1 week's notice. Yeah, so you really need to check the awards quite carefully in relation to that, the direction to take these. So that's really just those changes really only relate to the clerks and the Hospitality Award at this stage. The next one is looking at opportunities for other useful work. So again, the Hospitality Award has just changed within the last couple of days. So, and one of the changes that they made was, for example, that if you're a wait person in a cafe, the awards just changed so that the employer can direct you to do things like deliveries. So they're sort of just trying to provide a bit more flexibility. And these changes that I'm referring to are only for a period of time. I think in both those cases, it's till the end of June or something at this stage. So the option is really to think about, well, is there other useful work that people can do at this time? They can't do their normal job because of whatever reason, but are there other things that we can get them to do that is adding value to the business and keeping them employed at this period of time? Now, the other option there is reducing hours of work, and we're seeing quite a bit of this. And again, employers and employees, in my experience over the last couple of weeks, are working very well together on that. I think where an employer is just honest, saying, well, guys, you know, it's tough times, what are we going to do? We're getting a lot of clients that are negotiating reduced hours arrangements with their employees. Now, again, you really need to check the award requirements around some of that stuff because the awards can differ a bit. Generally, though, you really need to get the employee agreement to that. You should document the arrangement that you have relating to that. And you should also keep in mind that some awards, certainly the Hospitality and Clerks Award, again, they've just been changed within the last couple of days. So that even if somebody reduces their hours, let's say they're working 35 hours a week, but for this period they're just working 20, they would continue to accrue their leave at the rate of 30 hours a week or 35 hours a week, whatever it was I said, even though they're working reduced hours. And again, that's just a new thing that they've put in as a temporary arrangement for a couple of awards. Okay. So reducing hours of work is a really good option, but generally it requires agreement of people, but you really do need to check the awards for specifics.
Okay, we better keep moving, Greg. There's a couple of questions, but I think we might need to just hold off on those for the time being because I want to give Simon enough time.
Yeah.
I'll just go to the next.
So just very quickly then, the last thing is, so as I said, those first options need to be explored. If you've explored that and it's really not resolving the issue for you at this stage, you may need to look at stand downs or redundancies. Now, stand downs are happening. We're all reading the papers about them, in the papers, but the stand downs are generally not available for instances of business downturn. So if you run a cafe or a massage a parlour, they're calling them, or a therapy centre or something that where the government has ordered that to be shut down, then stand downs could apply in that situation. However, if you're able to operate as a business, but business is just not doing great because everybody's being very cautious, then a stand down will generally not be an option in that case. So you need to explore those other options on the previous page, or you need to move forward to redundancies, unfortunately. Just one other note on the stand downs. If you do a stand down, just keep in mind that leave continues to accrue during that period of stand down.
Okay, so a stand down, does that mean that you don't need to pay annual leave or long service leave in a stand down? Is that the difference between that and just deciding to stop work, stop the business?
A stand down is a sort of formal, we are stopping work for a period of time. So it might be, we've got a restaurant, but we're not doing the takeaway thing, or we can't do it for whatever reason. Therefore, we are just shutting down the business for, we estimate, a period of 2 months. Therefore, we can formally stand down our staff for that period without. So
it's a decision. It can be a decision by the business.
Yes. However, it's generally only an option to businesses that have been ordered to shut down.
Okay, so it's not really a decision. So not every business can just decide, I'm going to stand down my staff if it hasn't been directed, if it's not an industry or a sector that's been identified by the government.
That's right. Yeah. So if it was my business, for example, and people just weren't spending money or whatever, and business was down, I could not stand down my employees.
Yeah, if you did decide to stop business, then you would just pay you'd have to pay your annual leave and everything else as normal.
Yeah, if I couldn't stand down but wanted just to stop doing anything for a while, then yes, I could try and negotiate with my employees to take annual leave or something like that. But ultimately, it may be that it needs to be, you need to move towards redundancy.
Yep.
Yeah. So generally, I guess the key message there is that stand downs are generally only an option for those businesses that have been directed by the government to cease trading for a period of time. For other businesses that have exhausted those other options but are able legally to continue to trade, but business is just not going, so then redundancies is the likely outcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, excellent. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. Okay, good. So
if
anybody's got any questions, let me know after the session.
Yeah. What we might do is just give Simon his chance to share, and then if people want to stay on after the hour, and we'll cover off some of these questions.
Sure.
Okay. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, Anil, and thanks everybody for joining us. I know that some of you have probably got more time than you would previously have, but it's still our most precious resource, and we really appreciate you spending some of it with us. Having said that, if people need or feel the need to leave the meeting, I know that we said an hour. This will be available on replay, and I promise not to be too heartbroken as I see you guys disappear. So, for my presentation, it's going to be probably shorter than the other couple, so hang in there if you can. I'll give you a bit of an overview of who I am, so you know who's this guy talking to you about marketing, why it's important to continue advertising now. We'll have a look at some things that you can do to stay in the forefront of people's minds with blowing your budget, because like most of us, ad budgets are drying up very, very quickly, I would imagine, for you guys. And then right at the end, a couple of key takeaways. So Anil, if we can have the next slide, please. So who am I? For anyone who doesn't know, my name's Simon. I'm the founder and owner of Orbit Marketing, which is a boutique digital marketing agency. Predominantly, we work in the social media and chat marketing space. Now, I know there's a lot of cowboys operating in that space at the moment, but my background is as a marketer. I have a uni degree from the University of New England about far too long ago, 20 years maybe. 15 years in advertising with businesses like News Corp, carsales.com.au, and 5 years at local paper, The Western Weekender. So I've got a pretty solid background to be able to speak to you about this. And the things that I'm talking about are the things that we do day to day in our agency for our clients. So we know that these things work.
And plus, Simon, you are our president, the president of the Penrith Valley Chamber of Commerce.
I'm very, very privileged to be part of the team, which is an exceptional team that's running our chamber. And you can see by the level of experience and the sort of things that have been spoken about today by members of our board, it's a terrific team. Yeah. So let's jump right into it. Why is it important to be advertising now? And I know that this is certainly something that we've spoken about in a lot of detail. There's definitely some guilt around with people who do feel that they're still able to advertise. They feel like maybe they shouldn't be, feel as though maybe they're rubbing their message in people's faces. But as our economy slows down, those of us who can earn income, I believe, have almost an obligation to do that, to do it for our families, to do it for our employees or our contractors, and to be able to take what we can earn and spend it in the wider economy to make sure that we're supporting those other businesses as well. So far from feeling bad about this, you should feel privileged that you're able to do that, and you should be looking at how you can do that in a positive way. Now, in order to do that, we need to continue to advertise our businesses. There are still people who need your product or your service. And in the current climate when our norms have dramatically changed, people may not be sure how or where to find you. It's important to let them know that, and only by advertising can we continue to do that. Secondly, during times like this, and we see it whenever there's a downturn, a serious downturn in the economy, even people who do have money to spend are far more discerning about how they spend it and with whom they spend it. So levels of trust need to be much higher in order to give people confidence to spend money with your business. And a great way to do that is to make sure that you're still there, that you're still visible. They can see that you haven't gone away, that you haven't deserted them in times of difficulty or times of crisis. And it just makes them feel a lot more confident that you have a solid and a stable business. So continuing to promote yourself now is very, very important. What's the alternative? I think Suzanne said it in her presentation. Doing nothing is not an option. I know that some businesses are being forced to close, but if they're just closing their physical locations and they're continuing to do business, the only way people will know how to find you is to make sure that you're in front of them. You'll lose trust, you'll lose share of mind. Share of mind being when a consumer is looking for a product and they're not sure which product they're going to buy, particular brands come to mind, and they're the brands that they see on a regular basis. So you need to make sure that you're in front of those people and they still know who you are. Now, another reason that's really important is with less noise in the market, with your competitors pulling out of the market, you'll get much more cut through. Now's really the time to start building affinity with people so they get to know you, like you, trust you. Now's the time to be able to build your authority as a brand. So as we come out the other side of this, you're in a much stronger position. So Warren Buffett, and I really like this quote, and I will explain it a little bit. Warren Buffett said, "Be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful." Now, I think it's important to define greedy. It doesn't mean we should be trying to sell our product. It doesn't mean that we should be trying to take advantage of people in their circumstances. What it means is we should be making sure that the extra market share that's available in people's news feeds, we're taking advantage of that. We're getting out there and spreading our message as wide as we possibly can while everybody else is withdrawing from the market. So now is a very, very important time to be advertising. Anil, can we have the next slide, please, mate? You'll create long-term branding benefits by ensuring that you're visible now, by ensuring that you're there to support people now. That will pay off long-term as people start to look at you as a really trusted business and a really trusted brand. And you'll get awesome prices. Let's face it. If there's less people who are buying advertising at this time, it becomes cheaper. And Forbes magazine report that numerous studies have shown businesses who increase their activity during difficult times come out the other side with increased and often dramatically increased market share. So don't feel bad about marketing now, but we've got to make sure we do it in a responsible way. So let's have a look at how we can do that.
And Simon, Sam has commented on one of your previous points that, yeah, this is her issue. She's closed her shop, but she still needs to support her 40 plus suppliers. It goes back to your point about, we've got an obligation if we can continue to promote our products, supply our products to customers. It's obviously going to help not just our own families, but all of our suppliers as well.
We really do have an obligation. And it's a weight that sits really heavily on the shoulders of some people. There's the guilt attached with, hey, my business is actually okay, or I can pivot and I can innovate and move my traditional business to online. People do actually feel guilty about that, but you shouldn't. What you should do is make sure you're using that. Our businesses are there to serve us and they're there to serve our communities. And if we can do something positive in this time of uncertainty and difficulty, we should feel actually pretty good about that. If we're able to support the local takeaway by ordering out, if we're able to support any sort of small business by doing the things that we would normally do, but doing them in a slightly different way, then I think we need to make sure we do that. So how do we keep promoting ourselves without appearing greedy, without kind of rubbing it in the faces of people who are doing tough? Well, change your objective. The objective of what you're doing with your marketing shouldn't be to sell anything. It should be to add value and to have a look at how you can help others who are doing it tough in these times. Now is the time to build authority and trust. So if you have a website and you've got a blog on there, look at what are the kinds of problems my customers are facing right now and how can I help them through that? Not by selling them anything, but by giving them the information that they need to help themselves. You can be active in Facebook groups, and this is a really big one, right? Facebook groups, virtually all of us are members of some type of group. Now, if you're a business-to-business product or service, there are Facebook groups dedicated to helping business owners effectively operate those businesses. Find them. How do you do that? On your mobile device, right at the bottom of your Facebook news feed, you'll see a little icon with 3 people in it. Tap on that and it will allow you to search for groups. If you're doing it from your Facebook desktop, down the left-hand side, you'll see a menu item down towards the bottom, which is simply called groups. Tap on that or click on that, and you'll see a number of groups that Facebook suggests for you based on your online activity. Join some of those groups. Join as yourself, join as your page. Some of them will have different rules which will allow you to join as a page or not allow you to join as a page. When you get into those groups, scroll through the posts and look for ways that you can answer people's questions. Look for ways that you can help them deal with the issues that they're currently facing. Don't go in there and post a sales pitch. That's not what this is about. That's not going to help you build any trust or any authority. Allocate yourself about half an hour every day to doing that. It's something that you can do for free. If you're like many of us and you're isolating at home, then you do have some extra time to do that. And what it's going to do is it's going to help position you as an authority or an expert in your field. So when people do need to reach out to somebody for some paid support, you're the first brand that they're going to think of. Be mindful of the circumstances of others, but don't give in to the doom and gloom. So what I mean there is still advertise. It's okay to be advertising products and services for sale, but change your messaging. Think about that you're putting out there. Don't have images of people kissing and hugging and touching and being in large groups because we're not able to do those kind of things at the moment. address the elephant in the room in your ad copy. Talk about, we know that things are difficult at the moment, under current circumstances. It's okay to talk about those kinds of things. And in fact, it's really important that you let the people who are looking at or seeing your messaging know that you understand how they're feeling. So be mindful of others when you're writing your advertising copy, and get specific. As a traditional business with brick and mortar space, you open the doors and anybody who walks past is a potential customer. When you're in the online space, particularly if you're using social media, everybody is not your customer. So you need to have a really good understanding of who you're talking to and target your advertising to that market, because that will help you get much more reach for your advertising dollar. Now, I know this is going to be sent out as a replay, and I've got a couple of tools that you guys can use to help nail down who is your ideal market. So I'll make sure that those files get attached to that email, and we'll certainly be here to help answer your questions on how to use them.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those templates that you use, or those tools that you use, Simon, and they're fantastic. They're great tools to work through, very simple. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Anil. And that's the whole point. They need to be really easy to use, or people don't use them. So these are very simple, and they'll help you get a better understanding of who is your target market and who you should be talking to. Once you know that, and once you understand the problems that you're solving for those people, make sure you address that in your messaging. So help people understand exactly what it is that you're going to do for them. At the moment, it's always important to do that, but at the moment we're so fearful of what's coming next, and we're really just looking for people to help us get through what's happening at the moment. So if you're offering them a way to do that, even if it is, as I said, by promoting a blog post that's on your website, make sure you're talking directly to the problem that you're going to be solving for people. Manage your own ad campaigns. Now, coming from an agency owner, that might sound counterintuitive, but very often, particularly on social media, the management of the ad campaign can cost as much or more than the actual amount that you're spending on the advertising or the media. So learn how to manage that yourself. If you're doing Facebook ads, Facebook has a course called Facebook Blueprint. It's free and it will take you through every single step of how you can go about setting up and running your ad campaign. Look for agencies like ours that have information on their websites or in Facebook groups about how you can go about managing that yourself, and ask for support. During this time, we're all going to be looking for ways that we can help you do that without asking anything in return. And what it will do in the short term, it'll save you a lot of money and help you promote your own business and run your own campaigns. And in the longer term, when you do go back to engaging an agency, it'll just mean that you've got a really good handle on what they're doing for you. Importantly, have a plan. Don't just start throwing advertising out there. Understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. Are you trying to get people to your website so that you can build an audience of people to retarget with more advertising? Are you running call to action advertising? And in this climate, be careful with that if it's an actual sales pitch. But if that's what it is, then make sure you have a plan for that. Have a strategy for how you're going to roll that out. So which channels are you going to be using? What messaging are you going to use? And have some success metrics. So what I mean by that is, if you're running an ad campaign that's purely designed to get people to go to your website to read a blog post, make sure you know how many people you want to get there and measure that. Have a look at how many people are clicking on your ad. If it's not working, stop it and either change your messaging or change your images or change your ad targeting. But just putting up an ad and leaving it there is certainly not going to help you in the long term. It could end up costing you a lot of money. So have a plan, a strategy for how to implement that plan, understand what success looks like, and then keep a close eye on it. And again, if you're unsure about any of those things, reach out for help. There are people who will help you with that. And pick your medium. If we're talking specifically about social media, there are so many platforms. There's Facebook, there's LinkedIn, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's Snapchat, they're endless, YouTube. Your audience is not on every single one of those platforms. So getting specific and knowing your audience Once you've been through that exercise, it'll give you a much better idea of which of those platforms they're on. Facebook is almost a no-brainer because there are so many people using it. And then depending on your type of business, if it's very visual, look to Instagram. If you're a business-to-business provider, look to LinkedIn. If you're targeting a really young audience, then maybe TikTok is the place for you. But understand where those people are going to be and concentrate your efforts there, because if you're trying to be everywhere and every platform, you're spending a lot of money, not necessarily for great returns. So the key takeaways out of all of that, if there's two things that I really want you to take away from this, now is not the time to stop advertising. If you're doing it yourself, if you're doing it in a reduced fashion, if you're using it to pivot your business and move into the online space, great, but now is not the time to stop advertising, because you will totally disappear from people's minds. And with whatever it is that you're putting out there, focus on adding value for people. Focus on how can I help these people, my potential clients, get through to the next stage of this and get through to the other side whilst keeping my brand in front of them. This is not about a big sales pitch. So guys, that's it from me. I hope you found some value in that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you need support, please reach out.
Excellent. Thanks, Simon. So if anyone has any questions, just pop them into the chat box. That would be fantastic. I was going to go to questions now, but what I might do is just, I might come back to questions. I just want to cover off a couple of very quick things first, but definitely type in the questions while I'm just covering off this next slide in the next 2 minutes. So final word from me is really, just to stay positive and stay healthy. I ran a webinar last week, and I drew up a diagram from Stephen Covey, which is his model around the zone of concern and the zone of control, or zone of influence. And then I found this nice little graphic here, and effectively this outside dark shaded area is your zone of concern, but it's not necessarily things that you can control. And then this inner circle here is your zone of influence or zone of control. And obviously, if you try to focus too much on all this stuff out here in this dark shaded area, it just causes you stress because you can't do anything about it. So this graphic I thought was just fantastic. Let go of all these things here, stop worrying about them, focus on the stuff inside this circle here. All right. Now you will get a copy of this presentation, so you can have a look at that later on. But definitely stay positive, focus on what you can do rather than what you can't do. Be an example for others, your team, your customers, your friends, your family. No one wants to be around people that are down, that are sharing too many negative vibes. I know it is a difficult circumstance, and some people have it more difficult than others. But definitely, try to stay positive. Stay apart as we are here, but stay connected. And one of those things you can do, as Simon said, take part in groups. Look at joining things like the Chamber. I mean, I'm not shy of giving ourselves a plug. We've got fantastic businesses in the Chamber. We're still operating. We've got plenty of online forums and education that we are launching now that we can't do our standard networking, face-to-face networking events. We've got weekly lunch and learns, other forums that we're going to take part in and start launching. So definitely, if you are interested in joining, then feel free to get in touch. Support each other. And I did a little Facebook Live video yesterday about exercise while I was out there doing a run with my daughter. But it's a great way to get out of the house, get the blood flowing. It's great for your mindset, and definitely get out there and exercise. So that's all I wanted to cover off. As I said, thanks for attending. I will stay on if you want to answer some questions, because we do have some questions here that we will be covering off in a minute. But definitely get in touch with us. Our membership manager, Stacey, is on this call. That's her smiling face there. If you do want to get any more information about what we've covered, inquire about membership, then definitely give Stacey a call. And if you are a member, then we do have a special deals page on our website where members can put special deals. We're really going to start promoting that a lot more, encouraging members to use each other and take advantage of those special offers that are out there. So a couple of questions here that I'll cover off, and feel free to keep sharing any questions that you have in the chat box. Greg, a couple of questions for you. Now, Joe, who asked these questions, has had to head off, but it might be worthwhile for others who want to hear. Actually, one from Joe's got here. Actually, no, it's not Joe. It's M. Dunn. What verification should be supplied for employees who are self-isolating due to being diagnosed? So they have been diagnosed with coronavirus. Is it the usual doctor certificate? Greg, did you...
Sorry, they have been diagnosed.
They have been diagnosed, yes.
Insofar as I'm aware, yes, they get some sort of documentation from their doctor supporting that. So look, I'm not aware that they need anything other than a regular doctor's certificate, but they may well be giving specific documentation relating to the testing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Greg, while you're there as well, Joe asked another question. Does the reducing hours really require an agreement based on these unprecedented times?
Well, really, it really comes back to the award, to be honest. As I said, they made changes to the hospitality award, which allows you to be a bit more directive about that, I believe. However, generally speaking, yes, most awards require you need to sit with them, you need to reach agreement on that. But in my experience over the last couple of weeks, people seem to be able to negotiate those arrangements. The alternative, I guess, is ultimately redundancy. If people don't agree to that and the business is heading south, the business owner may well be left without an alternative. So that tends to be an incentive for people to agree. Although you can't, you wouldn't want to be threatening or anything like that.
All right, excellent. Final comment here from Sam. Thanks, everyone. What a great chamber you have in Penrith. Thanks, Sam. Any other quick questions before we wrap up? Now, once again, we will be sharing this recording with all of you, including and we will also share this presentation, the slide deck for this presentation. Any other final comments from any of our presenters?
Good luck, everybody. We're here for you. You don't have to do this on your own. If anybody has any queries, any questions, or just feels like a bit of a chat, if you're going stir crazy at home, then feel free to reach out.
Great.
And yes, a message from me, just remember, we didn't get this far just to get this far. It's about negotiating with every type of supplier and debtor and reaching out to customers, working out an alternative way of how you can run your business. I think a lot of efficiencies will come from this. And then, good luck, reach out. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending. Thanks for taking the time. Hopefully it's broken up your day a bit if you are at home. But definitely reach out and we will speak to you soon. And thanks for attending.